Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of amazing individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very senior technology professional from India, Mr. Debdeep Sengupta. Debdeep, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's always a pleasure to meet you and to be on your show.
Thank you. Debdeep is the president and CRO of Cloud4C. He was earlier the president and managing director of SAP India and South Asia, and he's been recognized, awarded, and felicitated several times. So Debdeep, let's talk technology today. All our lives are completely encompassed with technology, and you're in the cloud business. Tell me a little bit about the cloud business and its impact on individuals, organizations.
Thanks, Ashutosh. Really delighted to be on this show, as I mentioned. So I guess I would put cloud more than technology. It's a consumption model. It is how you consume technology. Does it make it easier for you? Does it make yourself, if you're an individual or an organization, be more agile, be more mobile? And if I'm an organization, does it give a superior experience to my employees? Does it give a superior experience to my customers? I think those are the key questions one has to look at when one adopts any technology, because it must facilitate the human experience, whether you're interacting as an individual, whether you're interacting from organization to organization. I guess that's the fundamental objective. If I look at, I would put cloud more as a consumption model than just as a technology enabler.
Okay.
What it has done is that it has helped to I would say, organizations to innovate faster, to innovate in bite sizes. Instead of waiting for multi-year to do a transformation project, you can do a transformation project in bite sizes, in small chunk and sprints. I think that is what it has enabled. And, the impact of, with mobile, with handheld computing and all of that, I think over the last more than a decade and a half, we have seen the advantages as well as some of the downsides of technology, of digital addiction.
Absolutely. And yet, you and I were just talking before we started recording. Most of us, whether as individuals or as organizations, have almost entirely become dependent on the cloud. What happens if there's a vulnerability in the cloud?
Yeah, that's a $1 trillion question in today's world.
Correct.
So, there are multiple aspects of this entire thing, Ashutosh. I'll start, obviously, there's an aspect of data. There's an aspect of privacy. There's an aspect of security. There is an aspect of, in today's world, I can't, while I don't want to politicize, but geopolitical situations can also impact your individual lives as well as your business operations. So you're absolutely right that, as I said, it has its pros and cons. And if you look at the history, with every new technology, while we have progressed as a culture, as a society, and learned to adopt the technology, I guess we are still learning to adopt some of these cutting-edge technologies.
Correct.
To be making it really advantageous for us while circumventing some of those challenges.
And, you've spent time with SAP, which is the leading tech software company, which is enabling so many organizations. Now you're leading Cloud4C. What are the advantages of transforming the legacy software into the cloud?
Yeah. I think that's a very relevant question. If you see, I guess I'll again go back to where in the world we live in today. We have what is called on one hand the born in cloud or digital native organizations.
Correct.
People, the Gen Zs and the millennials, I would say the Gen Zs of the world and all that, who has only been born with a tablet or a mobile phone.
Correct.
Right. They have no way of looking at legacy So when they become entrepreneurs, their only choice of call or the first port of call is adopting, some of the cutting edge technologies and using cloud as a consumption methodology. But however, at the same point in time, there are organizations which are 100-year-old, like I talked about SAP, which is a 50-year-old organization. In many organizations, many legacy organizations, both in the tech world and in the traditional world, have had a long legacy, right? And how both of it is not that one will. We have seen through the various stages of I would say technology evolution, that whenever a new technology comes, everybody says that the older technology will die, then only the new will exist. I guess we have seen both coexist. Just to give you an example, you've seen large, I would say, enterprises which has been completely cloud native, like Amazon, which brought internet commerce and e-commerce and all that. They're now having physical stores. Right, they are now having physical logistics.
Absolutely.
Right, and similarly, we are seeing many 100-year-old, 150-year-old companies, like whether it's in India or globally, they are adopting cloud. They are adopting multi-channel. They are doing all of the all the adopting latest technologies. I guess the reality lies in how do you live in a two-speed world, right? How do you live in a two-speed world? And even if you see the recent pandemic, all of us now used to hybrid. Earlier, possibly we would have done this recording on a studio. Now, we met virtually a few times.
Yeah.
So we have also learned to live in a hybrid world. I think what has happened in the last 2 years has possibly accelerated and made us realize that we can live in this hybrid world, what I call as a two-speed world of the digital and the physical. And some way in the future, for every organization, every individual, these paths will merge.
Very, very interesting. And, you just mentioned the pandemic and how people have gone through that. That's a great segue to my next question, that the pandemic made every single human being almost everywhere in the world suddenly realize the power of digital technology. I would love to get your perspective on what are the opportunities that have been now thrown up in the world because of the digital economy.
So I think we have to reflect and introspect with our own experiences of last 2 years, right? Telemedicine has been there for decades, but I think last 2 years doing video consultation with doctors has become the normal.
Correct.
Right, but whereas the technology and everything, had been there for a long time, but the adoption rate was very, very low. When we were no choice, you would not want to go on your own volition to go to a hospital just to meet a general physician.
True.
Right. So unless you have to go for severity of the case, so both from the practitioner side as well as from the consumer side, that experience has changed. So just give an example. There's been the entire healthcare industry itself. Right. On one hand, they adopt a lot of technology. On the other hand, from an information technology perspective, they have started adopting. I would say that speed has accelerated over the last 2 years. Right. I give an example of simple telemedicine.
Correct.
You don't need to look at rocket science.
Correct.
Right. Similarly, if you look at what's happening in the world today, there's a new buzzword which is coming called quick commerce. Deliver everything in 30 minutes or 10 minutes.
Correct.
Right. Deliver even in the most advanced nations where manpower is scarce, doing home service, servicing of your vehicle, of your personal automobile.
Right.
In a place like UK or Europe, it would have been unimaginable. Right. Today, that has become where labor is expensive compared to some of the other emerging markets. That has become, I would say, a norm. Right. So, the world has changed in so many ways, either through technology or through the restriction on the constraints, and that we have to still get our basic necessities fulfilled. Right. Basic necessities as well as a little bit more evolved than that. has led to not just technology adoption, new business model coming in.
mm,
I think that's the point I was trying to make. The
mm,
entire direct-to-consumer model, which I
mm.
was talking about, quick commerce, entire
Correct.
home services model, right? Entire, which I talked about, like car services or
Mm.
any other services,
Very
right?
interesting.
Has become even in the most advanced economies has become very I would say prevalent
Mhm.
because in India we have been had this the choice of even for 100 rupees delivery get something home delivered,
Mm.
right? But in the advanced world, in the Western economies, that was never a choice
Correct.
unless you go to Amazon or something like that.
Mm.
So I would say those are the fundamental shifts, and also a hybrid workspace, right?
Mm.
And I'll talk about the real world.
Mhm.
Even when you look at manufacturing, right, where unless workers goes to the plant,
Mm.
runs their shop floor, right, gets their daily production done,
Mm.
right, where the workers, supervisors, managers. So how do you manage such an environment where
Mm.
you have no option other than to go, or if you are working for a retailer or a warehousing,
Mm.
right? How do you enable still have safety? So the things like having a secure workspace
Mhm.
from a health perspective
Mm.
has become a very very important aspect.
Mm.
So I would say a cross section of these trends,
Correct. Correct.
which has become very I would say ubiquitous
Very
over the
interesting.
last 2 years.
Very interesting. And yet, Devdeep, when you look at a digital world, it assumes that there are no boundaries anywhere in the world because a digital world transcends boundaries. How will this entire scenario play out in the real world where now boundaries and walls are coming up all over again?
Yeah, I think yeah, I guess it's a bit like if you recall, Ashutosh, globalization versus anti-globalization,
Correct.
which we
Well
saw
said. Mhm.
couple of decades back,
Mm.
right? So and again, technologies again has been worked as a I would say a change agent for globalization.
Mm.
But you're right. It is not just about the boundaries.
Mm.
It is also about security of your citizens.
Mm.
It is about privacy of your data. There are many such regulations. Uh, uh, you know, I mentioned in the beginning, as we get into new technologies like AI, machine learning,
Mm.
blockchain, as well
Mm.
as use them consumed through cloud and things
Mm.
like that, remotely and things like that. I guess as a society and as policymakers, these are concerns which is on everybody's mind,
Mhm.
whether you're at the organization level or at the administration level.
Mm.
These are main concerns. If you see uh, what is in the center today, I would say limelight Europe. Europe had a data privacy regulation which was called GDPR a couple of years back,
Mhm.
right? To try and secure their data. But despite that, you have challenges today.
Mm.
Similarly, you have even within the US, like California has their own data regulation policy.
Mm.
In India, we have been talking about it for a while.
Mm.
China has it.
Mm.
Vietnam has it. So again, these kind of I would say regulations, and you saw the kind of I would say civil and other cases which are happening even within the US against these big tech companies.
Mm.
Right. So there needs to be some amount of regulation, but at the same point of time, to over regulation will kill it.
Mm.
And to your point of boundaries coming up, that's a reality of life. Every organization and nation has to live with and come up with their own policies.
So does that mean then that, and you just said that every country and even the US, California has its own laws for data regulation. Does this mean that the economies of scale of huge cloud companies will become a challenge because every country will say, put your servers in my country?
Uh, okay, that's a very very relevant question.
Hmm.
I'll put it in a different way. If you look at the tax regime, right? there's something called cost of doing business, right? Because since my background comes from a business application, this thing, let's say every country had its own tax regime, both direct tax as well as indirect tax, right? And for any globalized business, you have to adapt to the rules of the land, right? So that's the cost of doing your operations, right? In technology, till so far, we have had a free ride, right? I guess, I would put it more of cost of doing business in a regulated or in a policy-bound fashion. I think that's how I would put this entire thing. And the good part of it is, what happens is, with scale, that means you have to implement, we have to put more data centers, because if you see the look, and now in the recent policy in India, data centers reached infrastructure status. Because if you have to host data in locally, as per the central bank policies, as per government policies, you need to have enough data centers locally to be able to host the data. Just making a policy without the underlying infrastructure will not help. So, because in a digital economy, that's the reality of life. In fact, somebody said one day, I found it very, very interesting, and I must mention, Ashutosh, that, till so far we looked at Fortune 500 companies with their revenue, with their I would say share price, with their enterprise value, with the number of employees. Maybe the Fortune 500 of tomorrow are by the data footprint on the data consumption in the digital economy. The entire currency might be a bit different.
Wow, that's a very, very interesting and new perspective. But again, another question for you, Debdeep, as someone who's been in the tech business for such a long time, and coming back to our own country, it has often been said that one of the reasons technology grew so rapidly in our country was because there was no intervention from the government. With all these laws coming in, for privacy and data security and so on and so forth, what will that have an impact, in your opinion?
Yeah, as I said, Ashutosh, I would say that's a cost of doing business.
Okay.
Right, that's a cost of doing business, because yes, in every economy, and especially in India, are because of lack of, I would say, oversight and regulation, I think it had grown, and that's how I would say, if you look at what is happening in the startup world today in India, right, they're all reaching global scale.
Correct.
Because it's not just regulation. I think there's a lot of encouragement, right? There's an environment of this thing. So I would say it is about the right policy making. It is also companies adopting, I would say, the best practices, not finding shortcuts to reach profitability, to reach revenue objectives. I guess it's a balance between policy making and ethical business. At the same point of time, providing your customers and consumer the right kind of services and products. So I would say, I would put it this way.
What a great response. Thank you. So Debdeep, now let me move to the next segment and ask you a few questions, because my viewers and listeners love to get to know my guest a little better. My first question to you is that in a career which has been so successful, as you look back, what would you say are 3 key milestones or pivot points in your life or your career?
Yeah. So I'll put it both together. I spend, if you see my career, I spend almost 80% of my career in one company.
Okay.
Right. Which was my professional experience. That has been a fairly transformation experience for me. My journey in SAP, joining as a young rookie to being the president of one of the fastest growing and the largest regions. So that's been a pretty much of a life changing, and that gave me the opportunity to work, to engage, and to travel globally. See how work happens across. Work with colleagues, work in different environments, and so on and so forth. I also met my life partner while in that organization.
Amazing.
So that has been, as I said, personally for me, a very rewarding and a rich experience.
Mhm.
Uh, and maybe one regret is possibly I was I would say showering on the limelight and enjoying the limelight for too long.
Mhm.
I didn't take risks enough to do something different, something new.
Okay. Okay. Well
So
said.
both it has both positives and
Absolutely.
negatives.
I agree. And thank you for sharing both the perspectives. My next question to you, Debdeep, is what are some of the core values you have personally believed in?
So there are three things which it's again a life experience. I would put
Mm.
not any management principle or anything. My life experience
Mm.
and what I believe truly,
Mm.
is number one is purpose, and it's often said word. And I'll talk about my personal experience. I'm a great believer of ikigai,
Mhm.
finding a purpose to your life, finding a meaning. What are you doing it for? Beyond your self-actualization, or I would say beyond just pursuing your own goal and goals for your family and your loved ones.
Correct.
Being in a corporate career for a long time, one of the things which I really enjoyed doing was, as a corporate citizen, to
Mm.
contribute back to the society in which we live in.
Mm.
Right. I've tried to do during my professional career through a digital literacy program called Kodunati,
Mm.
where we were able to contribute back to the society by training, enabling, and creating employable opportunities
Mm.
for almost 2 million youth and women
Okay.
across various parts of the country,
Mm.
almost around 1,500 centers.
Mm.
Again, that was enabled through the organization, through our through the team which worked with me.
Mhm.
But I was pretty proud of that, in the sense that there was a meaning that, look, as a technology company, as an organization, which is a global organization, how
Mm.
can you contribute back? As a leader of that organization, how can you contribute back to
Mm.
the society which you serve?
Mm.
And
Interesting.
that is something which I carry on
Mm.
even in my personal life,
All right.
without doing too much of advertisement and talking about it. So
Absolutely.
it's that's something which you have to
Mm.
personally believe in.
Mm. Well said. Well said. My next question to you is that, from where you are today, as you look back and as you look ahead in life, what does success mean to Devdeep?
I will go back to my first the answer to the previous question.
Mhm.
I said three things. I covered one part. I said purpose. Second, I said is passion.
Mm.
And third, I would say persistence.
Okay.
So I'll cover the other two in this question.
Okay.
So when I talk about passion, I would quote Steve Jobs by saying, "People who think they're crazy enough to change the world often do."
Mm.
So it doesn't matter, you know, if you're a 50-year-old or a 15-year-old, or doesn't matter your age
Mm.
or your gender. If you have the passion, if you really love what you do and do what you love, and
Mm.
that's a hard one to follow,
Mm.
but if you really enjoy what you're doing, you would try to achieve the impossible,
Mm.
right? I think it doesn't matter, if you have worked for 30 years or if you work for, that's your first job. That
Mm.
energy, the enthusiasm has to be there in everything what you do.
Mm.
Well, Ashutosh, you're a great example because you have traversed three careers,
Mhm.
right? And you're still so energetic and you're still so
Yeah.
passionate about what you do. It's a fantastic example. So I would say that is something one must carry on
Mm.
in their this thing, if you're starting your career or you're at the peak of your career. So
Correct.
it doesn't matter.
Well said.
And yeah, and my final point again to success
Mm.
on persistence
Mhm.
or perseverance. I would say very often, especially to the new generation, many of them give up easily,
Mm.
right, when they face the first hurdle or things like that. What life teaches you is, if you want something bad enough,
Mm.
even if the world says that you cannot achieve it, you
Mm.
must attempt it.
Mm.
It's this is something which Elon Musk said, right? And I'm again a great fan of. his thinking, his philosophy, and things like that. And it resonates from whatever I've witnessed in my personal life and my personal journey. That perseverance is something persistence is something which is almost undervalued most of the time.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Debdeep, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about all the amazing work you have done in the technology world of SAP and Cloud 4C. Thank you for talking to me about what is happening in the world of technology and how it is impacting personal lives and the lives of the corporate world. And thank you for talking to me about some amazing learnings of your own, which you were kind enough to share with me and my audience. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's been always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.